Paul Zolman grew up in an abusive home and considered ending his life. But with determination and choosing to think clearly, he talked himself out of it. He knew there had to be a better way to think and to live. He was raised in anger and he struggled with residual anger as an adult. He made the concentrated effort and the decision to break that negative pattern for himself and his family. Many of you will relate with Paul's story.
Have you ever felt like giving up, quitting, throwing in the towel? Welcome to Never Ever Give Up Hope featuring Carol Graham. She's an author, health coach, and motivational speaker. Backed into a corner multiple times in her life, Carol shares with you stories on how she overcame some of the toughest obstacles a person can go through in life, but refused to give up hope. Rather than admit defeat, an opportunity was presented, and it involves each and every one of you. Carol will feature spectacular guests who will share their messages of hope, encouragement, and their inspiration to prove why life's adversities only make you stronger. And now, welcoming the host of the show, here's Carol Graham.
Qualifies Paul Zolman to talk about love. His childhood experiences were the opposite of love, and that is our topic today. So, Paul, welcome to Never Ever Give Up Hope, and please tell us about your childhood, how it made you who you were then, and your determination to change in what appeared to be inevitable. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Carol. It's such a pleasure to be with you today. I love that introduction that you gave. It actually is very, very accurate. It starts with the generational thing, though, Carol. I think that it's something that's passed on. It's not really a genetic thing, but it's generational. I don't think my parents knew that they didn't know that wasn't appropriate, and obviously
Okay.
it's less appropriate now, but wasn't appropriate then. I mean the spankings and one spanking I remember being black and blue on my rear end for at least 3 weeks, and it was just
Wow.
one of those things that just happened, and we just kept it to ourselves. There wasn't an agency, Carol, at the time to report it to, or if there was, I didn't know about it, and it wasn't talked about in schools or anything like that. So it really was one of those family things. But as I grew older, I realized it's more of an educational thing. My father graduated from eighth grade. My mother was a high school graduate, but no college at all. So the college wasn't talked about in my household at all. But the educational thing about how to treat people, how to have sociality with others, instead of having abuse, instead of talking down to one another and just putting people down with your words, putting people down with your looks, putting people down with just in any way, shape, or form, focusing mostly on what's wrong with that person, never focusing or hardly ever focusing on what's right with that person. What can you love about that person? And I realized that I had that negative attitude from my childhood, and I wanted to get away from it, wanted that push away. One thing that you talked about, how did those attitudes help me develop? And one thing is I did not want to be in trouble with my parents.
Right, right.
I absolutely wanted to obey the rules. And when I was 17, Carol, I took a career test that, as most 17-year-olds, junior or seniors in high school, take a career test. Say, what path do you have a disposition toward? Well, I thought I'd be a great movie critic because I was critical. All my family was critical. I thought I'd be great at that. Then I said, "Oh, I don't really like watching TV. I'm number 10 of 11 in my family, Carol, and there was no remote control.
Right.
I was a human remote control. You have shorter legs. and I was on the younger side, and this is my brothers and sisters telling me, "You have shorter legs. Get to the TV,
Oh,
turn the
that's
channel.
funny.
I want
That's
to watch
funny.
this channel." So they go up and turn the knob. I was that human remote control, and I thought, you know what, this isn't worth it. I never get to watch anything I wanted to watch, and I just had to kind of simulate watching something that they wanted to watch, and it was always the Twilight Zone or something like that. That was just something after school that they wanted to watch. But I was that person. And I so really didn't like TV, so movie critic was out the door. When I took this test at age 17, it said I'd be a great IRS agent because I had such a strict upbringing about the rules and being obedient to the rules that I could tell, I could memorize those IRS rules, and I could just be that person. Well, I didn't want to be that person. I did not want to be, because let me ask you this: if you're a businesswoman and an IRS agent comes to your place of business, are you happy? No,
Of
you're
course. Good
mad.
point. Good point.
You're really upset. And I was already done, Carol, with having people be mad at me in my life, and I know where
Mm.
that was going. So I chose a rural field of work, but not quite the IRS agent. Accounting. How about accounting? And all the rules that account go with accounting, and that
Mm.
seemed to serve my disposition well.
Very good analogy. I grew up in similar circumstances in that it was kind of a generational thing, and I think most families, that's just the way, especially those who are from the old country per se, right? And the strictness and everything else, but we didn't understand it. And very often, many of us rebelled against it. So, thank you for clarifying that and helping the audience understand that era. I really appreciate that. So, continue now with what happened to change.
Well, growing up and I got married, had a family. My my grandfather, Carol, had 19 children. My father toned it down, only had 11, and then I only had 8 children.
My word.
I don't get it with my kids. They're only having like three, and three is the maximum. And I want more grandchildren, Carol. I don't know how to fix that, but in that type of situation, though, you get a lot of opportunity for interaction, a lot of opportunity to be able to discipline and to make a
Hmm.
difference
Hmm.
in those children's way that they grew up. And I'm not sure how much of a difference. I thought I was a whole lot better than my father, but my children would probably say that I was pretty strict and that I spanked them a little too much. And it usually was just one swat. It wasn't like bam, 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 bam like I got.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that in that way, I thought it was a whole lot better than my own dad. But it's just one swat. But it was a good swat, and don't do that. It's just let's correct this right now type situation, more of a disciplinary type situation like that. But even at that, I felt bad. I just felt bad that I was in it really kind of enforcing, Carol, what they did wrong.
Right.
And they knew what they did wrong. I didn't know what I did wrong when my father came home. He was a truck driver, came home on the weekends on Friday. He dated my mom every Friday night. That's one thing I really love about my father. But I can imagine the date went like this. It was always at the Maverick Bar, and it's always over alcohol. So it probably went like this: that my mother starts at the oldest child, and my father's getting annoyed. He's stacking all these annoyances, and now he's got this flash of anger, and that's exactly what I started doing. I saw my brother do that, and it was
Hmm.
just one of those generational things that was passed down. We stack, and then we had this explosion, and then it go back down, start stacking again. And it was just the focus on what was wrong with people. What did they do wrong during the week? And I feel like that's probably what my mother was reporting to my father at those dates every Friday night, because Saturday we would get it. Or even if it was really bad, might get it Friday night when they came home off their date. And it was a bad situation that way. I decided, as a father, I did not want to do that, and just the discipline was one thing, but but making the child feel horrible was not something I wanted to do. But I realized that when stuff like that happened, I would blame my father. And since I'm blaming my father, I would say, well, you go talk to him. It's his problem. He passed it down to me. It's his problem. It's still his problem. And when you can blame someone, Carol, you don't have any
Right,
responsibility.
right.
But the worst part about that, you're not going to change. There is no room for change when you can blame someone for your problems. You can't, you're not doing a self actualization. You're not getting to the point where you can see that you can do something better. You don't even get to that point. And I realized that at age 35 that, you know what, I think I need to stop blaming my father. He'd been dead 7 years already, Carol, at age 35. So he died when I was 28 years old. And so this realization that he can't defend himself. I can't talk to him
Right.
about it. And it's just one of those things that I need to start taking responsibility. So the biggest thing for me was that was a huge paradigm shift to take responsibility for my own actions. At age 35, I started doing that, and I realized that, you know what, I can create a better life for my children and for myself by just focusing on what's right about them and just tried to move that direction. I'd vacillate and I'd backslide and I'd go right back to that old thing that was passed down through the generations. And it was just hard to break out of that mold of focusing on what's wrong with people, whether all the mistakes and their weaknesses, and focus on that. Society teaches us to do that. So fast forward a little bit, that attitude that I had was part of the demise of my own marriage, the first marriage that I had. And so after we got divorced, I had primary custody of the children. There were 5 children left in the household at the time. And on my off weekends, I thought, you know what, I'm going to try to do something just a little bit different and just kind of get a fresh start. So I was doing what I call destination dating. And destination dating is just where I was in one city, she was in a different city, and we met online, and we'd pick a city to meet with, and we'd have a date and go back to our respective cities. So I did that for about a year and a half, spent over $10,000 traveling doing that, and I went on dates in Daytona Beach, Florida, in Atlanta, Georgia, New York City, Kansas City, Nashville, Salt Lake City, Phoenix, Cabo San Lucas, Las Vegas, all these places that I traveled to
Oh my
just for a
word.
date. It was so much fun. It was fun, but I was looking for love, like the lyrics of the song say, looking for love in all the wrong places. And I realized I needed to just fix myself up a little bit. I needed to improve my own game of love. And how was I expressing love? Because I still had that negative slant. I was focusing on, watching for the red flags, and we should watch for red flags. But I was trying to paint those red flags white, and it wasn't working really well that way. So I thought it came to a point that I was interested in someone so much that I wanted my big brother approval. Now, number 10 of 11, you always have to have big brother, big sister approval. You
Right.
know, I just have a hard time making my own decisions that way. Uh, and well, I was having a hard time. And so I took this woman up to my brother's house. And the first thing, my sister in law pulls her aside and says, point blank, and pointing her finger and shaking her finger at this woman, said, the only emotion that the Zolman family learned growing up was anger. At first, I denied it, Carol. I said, then it made me mad. And I just absolutely verified exactly what she said. Why would you say that to someone that I'm very interested in? And so, anyway, that was that. And I thought, here I've got a great opportunity that my sister-in-law, I really respect my sister-in-law for doing that, or saying that just because I respected her before, but it gave me an opportunity rather than be bitter at that with my sister-in-law. I thought there's a point right here that I have the opportunity to
Hmm.
change and have a paradigm shift of my own. Stop the anger and look what would be the opposite of anger. And I thought, well, love. Love would be a great opposite of anger. So I started focusing in that direction, learning more about love. I read the color code, and then I read the five love languages. And in the five love languages, I absolutely loved the principles of the five love languages, but I did not like, and it didn't work, the application that Dr. Chapman had. I'm single at the time, and this was after the fact, after we split with this woman, but I'm single at the time, and I'm trying to figure out, well, Dr. Chapman, I don't have a significant other. Who am I supposed to love? I mean, it was all his book, The Five Love Languages, was all about the a romantic relationship with someone, a significant other. And I didn't have that, so I thought, well, I just get to love everybody. So I thought, but how am I going to do that? And I thought, well, as a child, even as dysfunctional as our family was, Carol, we played games, and these games brought us together. And I thought, well, what if I could make the five love languages a game? So I contacted Dr. Chapman and asked him, I didn't ask him if I could make it a game. I asked him, are you licensing those little icons that you have for each one of the love languages? And after a couple of weeks, his attorney wrote back and said, no, we're not doing that at this time. I thought, well, thank goodness. They're kind of ugly anyway. They were ugly. They were just not updated. They were like 30 years old. The book was first printed in 1992. So I was grateful for that answer. I have an attorney that lived in my neighborhood that was a copyright attorney, and I went to him and said, I still have this idea. It's kind of bugging me. I wonder if you could help me. He was a friend. And he said this, he said, theory like the love language theory is not copyrightable. Application is. So they
Hmm.
weren't doing it as a game. So I thought, well, I'm going to make my own icons and make it into a game. So that's just exactly what I did. So what I did was I put it on a dice, and so I've got touch. I've got two hands that are touching one another, representing touch. I've got a hand holding a gift for gifts. I've got a hand holding a platter like a server for service. I've got two hands put together creating a heart, and then out of that heart's like the Taylor Swift heart. Out of that heart is a little conversation fly out, like a cartoon would have that conversation fly out. So that would be the words from the heart, and then the last one would be I've got a hand holding an hourglass representing time. Those are the five love languages, six sides on the dice. The last one had a hand holding a question mark. That one would be surprise me. So, Carol, there's just two instructions with the game. You roll the dice every day. Whatever it lands on, that is the love language you practice giving away
Oh
all day
my
that day.
word, that's ingenious.
All day to everybody.
Wow.
As I mentioned, I was single when I created, and I needed that consistency, that of something that I would do all day, every day. And it's not just an event. It's not just like, I did the dishes, I'm done. And you don't, it's not like that at all. It's not an event at all. So it became a style of love that I started practicing. As I'm rolling the dice, it kind of sets a theme or a purpose for that particular day. All day long, Carol, I'm watching for opportunities to love in that way.
Right.
So now, instead of watching for what's wrong with people, I'm watching for what's right with people. What
That's
what can I
amazing.
what can
That's,
I love about
yeah,
that person?
that's
Doing
amazing.
this doing this, Carol, over a 30-day period, I I realized that you know what I've created a new habit,
Right, right.
a new and wonderful habit. I don't have any time now to be annoyed, have that flash of anger. I did not have any time at all to look and focus on what was wrong with people. There's two different directions, it's like north and south. If you're facing south, you can't also face north. While I was looking at being critical to people, I couldn't also look at what's right about that person. That'd be two-faced, and did not want to be that way at all either. So I was focusing on what's right with people and focusing on how I can love them all day long. It was amazing. It was a miracle. It was that miracle that I've been looking for all my life. How do you get out of that negative attitude? How do you move away from focusing on the faults and weaknesses of other people. Like the media will focus on faults and weaknesses. Look what this person did. Look what this person did. I didn't want to do that anymore. I needed that positive reinforcement to focus on. I want to focus on what's right with people. Everybody has faults, so do I. If I focus on that person's faults, guess what they're going to do to me? They're going to focus on my faults. I didn't want that. If I focus on what's right with them, then maybe they'll focus on or notice what's right about me. That's the paradigm shift that I had.
You certainly have challenged us. Most definitely, as you are talking, I'm thinking how the world would change. I'm sure you thought of this as well if we all did exactly that, exactly what you said. Just such a simple, basic change could change the world. This has been enlightening and inspiring so far, and I'm so excited that you have shared what you have already, Paul. We're going to take a quick 15-second break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about your book, and I also have some questions about what you just shared. So we will be right back.
Great.
Carol Graham would like to show you the path from misery to miraculous triumph in her fast-paced memoir, Battered Hope. She relates her determination to succeed as someone who experienced one horrendous nightmare after another. Gang raped and left for dead, loss of a child, husband falsely imprisoned, and cancer. Nothing could break her tenacity or faith. No matter what you face, heartache, loss, suffering, or injustice, Carol will illustrate how she became a victor the same way you can. The secret is to never, ever give up hope. Order your copy at Amazon or batteredhope.blogspot.com.
I'm speaking with Paul Zolman today regarding the language of love, and he has stimulated the audience, I am sure, into thinking about love language, to thinking about how they look at other people. This is the part, Paul, that really encouraged me to take a look at people differently, because I think human nature, when we see something ugly or that we don't like, we automatically think many different things, including, do I want to be around that person? But what you are doing is you are challenging us to, why are they doing this? Instead of just pointing the finger and saying they're doing this. So looking at people in a broader sense, and I appreciate that. So moving forward, you can address that, of course, and I also want to ask you how your family has responded to the new Paul.
That's a great question, Carol. Thank you for asking that. The family is, even my wife is a little skeptical. My current wife, but not so skeptical that she doesn't believe that I've changed. She loves me for who I am and loves me even more that I'm even more kind. What my wife does, as I'm rolling the dice, this is an investment, Carol, that everybody would want to make. You put a little bit in, 2 seconds to roll the dice, and then if you practice whatever comes up on the dice, if you practice that all day long, you're going to have a huge return on that 2-second investment. That's the type of thing that we're trying to portray here. As I'm rolling the dice, though, my wife tries to guess. She doesn't roll the dice with me, but she tries to guess all day long. Whoa, what love language is he practicing today? And it really is a fun activity, absolutely a fun activity for both her and me, because I'm being really, I'm not trying to be cagey about it at all. It's just I'm sending it out there, and she's trying to figure out how is he expressing that love language today. And there's so many different ways to express love, and so many a lot of suggestions. I even put out a book called 101 Ways to Express Love, based on the love languages, and about 20 suggestions for each particular love language. And I think that it's a great opportunity, Carol, for us to be creative in our lives. How can I touch that person? As you're rolling the die, and what I found over a 30-day period, Carol, is that I learned all 5 love languages by giving it away. What the best part about that is now I can see it when it comes my way and I can respond appropriately, even if it's not my primary love language. And so, in essence, what I've done with this application of the love languages is close that gap that Dr. Gary Chapman saw when he was a Baptist pastor, interviewed couples. The husband was sending love to the wife. She wasn't seeing it. The wife was sending love to the husband. He wasn't seeing it. There was a gap. There was that communication gap. Rolling the dice and learning all five love languages closes that gap, because most likely people are going to send love your way that won't be your primary love language. They might hit it once in a while, but most likely it's not. If you can see that they're trying to send love your way and understand it that way, then you can respond to that. That's a huge boon for whoever would want to practice this. The second thing that happens is that by learning the love languages, you're actually improving your literacy in love. I think that we're really kind of illiterate if you think it's all about you, or you think it's or if I think it's all about me. We're really wrong. It's not in this game. It's not about that at all. It's about them. What you're trying to do is you're trying to help people have a better day as you're sending love out. And when you see somebody light up, Carol, now you've discovered
Right.
their primary love language or a secondary love language. And for that person, you take a mental note and wash, rinse, repeat. Carol, no longer do you have to say, "Excuse me, could we pause this relationship for just a moment? Well, have you take this survey so I know how to love you." It's problem solved. It's so awkward to do that. You don't have to do it anymore. Just use your observation skills. That's how you discover someone's love language. And in any given day, you're going to light up 3 to 10 people, making
Right.
their day.
Yes.
That's a whole lot better life,
Yes.
a whole lot more
Yes.
purposeful life than willy-nilly, come what may. Well, I didn't light up anybody today, but did you try? This is you actively trying to send love out all day long.
Considering how discipline in the home has changed so much over the past, well, even 3 or 4 decades, and you've expressed already what you grew up with, and many people of our generation, the same thing. And now we're fast forwarding and looking at discipline in today's world, in the schools, in the homes, etc. Could you speak to that, please?
Absolutely, Carol. Thank you for that question. I'm using this dice and taking it to the schools because of that very issue that you're talking about, the discipline problem, and trying to teach children. I'm just starting at K through 6, so 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, they can learn this. It's all pictures on the dice, Carol, so that you don't even have to learn how to read. But if you just understand what the icons say and how to express love in that way, you'll be able to send it out. So in the classroom, Carol, they're rolling the dice at the beginning of the day. At the
Really?
end of the yeah, at the end of the day, what they do is that the end of the day, I've talked with teachers worldwide, Carol. It's that last 10 to 15 minutes of the day is totally non-productive time. The kids have been there all day. Their minds are mush. They're antsy. They know the bell's going to ring. It's a horrible time. There's just no learning going on that last 10 to 15 minutes. So what they need actually is a decompression activity. One of the best decompression activities is journal writing. So
Hmm.
roll the dice at the beginning of the day. End of the day, each child will have an opportunity to write what did they roll as a class or individually. Maybe each one in the classroom gets to roll a dice. But what did they roll at the beginning of the day? What opportunities did they see to love in that way that day? And then what did you do about it? What this does, Carol, is take that responsibility that took me 35 years of my life to figure out, oh, I'm responsible for my actions. Now this 6-year-old understands, oh, I'm responsible for my actions. I have to write about it at the end of the
Wow.
day.
That's
And
huge.
then, so it's huge because now that child is responsible for their own actions. The teacher's not responsible. The principal's not responsible, although they do have some responsibility to manage it. But now each child is responsible for their own actions. So the bullying does not allow any room for bullying. Just like me practicing this, looking north instead of south, does not allow me any opportunities to be annoyed, to have that flash of anger anymore. I'm not looking at what's wrong with people, looking what's right. This is the opportunity for the children to practice that as well and insert something different into their life than what they've been taught by the media or by siblings or by anybody else. They can choose to love and choose how to express love all day long. Obviously, appropriately and in appropriate ways to be able to do that. But it's gonna take away a lot of the even thought processes of bullying, a lot of the thought process of putting somebody down and shunning them and letting them sulk in their own little corner, of isolating them. It's just going to take a lot of that away. Actively, these children are going to be out there. What can I do for you? You look great today. They're just going to be out there complimenting. They're going to focusing on that the welfare of that other person, of one another. We're trying to get back to that point that we care about each other rather than I don't care about you. It's all about me. Instead of having that attitude, we're getting back to I care about you. What can I do to help you have a better day?
What's been the feedback?
Great feedback. There are some kids that glom right onto it. Other kids that are slower to accept it. When they find out it's not being graded, yeah, maybe they'll accept it, maybe they won't. But it's really what we've done is add a corporate sponsor. So in my area, I've got a Yogurtland franchisee that actually will give 5 ounces of yogurt for free to a student that does it at least 15 times, 15 journal entries in 1 month. If they'll do 25 journal entries, like the whole month, they get 10 ounces of yogurt for free at Yogurtland. So it's a certificate
Oh,
program.
wow. Yeah.
We're looking for corporate sponsors that way in your communities, all the communities of your listeners,
Excellent. Excellent.
and in that way, we can roll this out to a lot of schools all at one time. I'm having a little pushback from the public schools, but a lot of private schools, a lot of charter schools, those are the type of schools that are really taking this and just grabbing it and running with it.
I want to talk about your book a little bit, Paul, and I wrote something here that I keep reading it over and over because I really like what you said, and that is that you moved from a childhood boot camp of abuse to being a person who loves everyone and can find good about anyone in any circumstance. This is truly the role of love. I absolutely love that statement. So could you expound on that a little bit, and then talk about your book, Role of Love?
Yes, thank you, Carol, for that question. I like to illustrate it a little bit, Carol. I have a walking stick that I went out and I found not too many days ago. And on the walking stick, it's a perfect walking stick. It's about 3.5 feet tall, but one side of the walking stick is really smooth, and the other side has little knots in the wood, and it's really some little pokies out. You wouldn't want to put your hand on that side. So I call it I got the nice side of the stick, and I've got a naughty side of the stick. Kind of play on words on naughty there, but Santa Claus, I'm sure, has a stick like this too, Carol. And I explain it like that. I really grew up knowing the naughty things to do, knowing angry things to do, talking over people, interrupting people, just being obnoxious in any way. No, there's no boundaries there. And
Right.
I realized when I'm looking for the things to love and for people to send love to me, I realized that Dr. Chapman, you know what? Even if I tell somebody what my love language is, I can't bid them to love me. I'm not going to go to the whiny voice and say, "Well, I told you how to love me. How come you're not doing it?" And he didn't even want to even get to that point. And so I realized that I need to backtrack from that boot camp of anger that I grew up in that had no boundaries. I need to backtrack and actually draw some lines. I don't have control over anyone sending love my way. What I do have control over is sending it out
Mm,
and responding when it
mm,
comes my way. And so by practicing that, it's easy to look at anyone and find something good about them
mm,
and focus on. And I realized that, the focus that I grew up in, maybe the faults or weaknesses, or maybe 10, maybe 20% of that whole individual. Carol, I was missing the 80 to 90% my whole life. I was missing the 80 to
mm.
90% that was good about that person. Now, because I'm focused on the majority and the good of that person, that 80 to 90% that's right about that person, I don't have any time to focus on anything that's bad.
Excellent point.
That's
Okay.
how I was able to overcome it. Just changing direction, change what you watch for is what you'll see.
How long have you been doing this again?
I've had the dice, the copyright on the dice since 2017.
Okay.
But the book was just published last year.
Okay. Excellent. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this is definitely a challenge, and it's the small things, it's the small changes, it's the step by step, right? It's not all of a sudden one day you're going to wake up and be a different person, but you are challenging us and to look at every action that we are doing and to create an atmosphere, which you've done with the dice and the game, of being challenged to do that for yourself. You never know what you're going to be challenged for that day. I love that, and how you're going to express that love to anybody, to everybody, even when you're upset with somebody or you come into a situation where you may be upset. Is that not the essence of the change that you're hoping?
Oh, absolutely. And that's, I think, Carol, you think I did this for the world. I actually did it for myself. I did it for myself. I
Right.
wanted to be that better person, but I thought, well, you know what? There's a lot of angry people out there. Maybe this might work for them. And so far it's worked very, very well for those that really implement it. Take the 2 seconds to roll the dice. Take the time to I keep a dice in my a die in my pocket. I call it a cube because people, if I say die, people think we're talking about death. We're not talking about death. We're talking about a cube.
Right,
So,
right.
so I keep a cube in my pocket as I walk around all day, and I tap it once in a while to remind myself this is what I'm focused on today, or what was it that I rolled early this morning, and I just be able to remind myself all day long that I'm focused on watching the words that I say, being kind and complimentary in the words that I send out today. That's what I rolled today, Carol. So it's a mindfulness.
What do you do when you come into a situation where you are seeing somebody abuse somebody else? Let's say in a public situation. Do you ever say anything?
It depends on the situation, Carol, and it really kind of depends. You know, I probably would do not put myself in harm's way in
Right,
that way.
right, right.
If it's a situation that it's escalating, it looks like there's going to be violence involved, I would definitely call 911. I mean, there are authorities that will take care of that. There's family services that take care of it. We have a lot of tools now that would take care of those situations where there wasn't available when I was growing up. And I'm grateful for those situations. We're really here to protect one another. And
Right.
you and I, Carol, and those that are listening, really need to become protectors of the society. We need this. We need to grab that freedom of choice, freedom of speech, back to say we want that freedom of speech to be positive, uplifting speech. We don't need this. You don't need to use the license of freedom of speech to say something bad about another person and to
Right.
put them down.
Hmm.
Why would you? Why would you even go that direction? Do you want it back to you? Is that what you want coming back? I really believe in the law of the harvest or karma or the law of attraction, which all say basically whatever you send out is coming right back to you. Why would you send a boomerang of anger out? Don't do it.
Excellent. Is that your summary, or is there anything else you would like to say in summary?
I just love, there's a quote from The Sound of Music, which is really kind of a classic that I love when Rolf is talking with Liesel, the oldest daughter, and she's up in her room on the second story of the Von Trapp mansion, and Rolf is down on the ground with his little bicycle. He's the delivery guy for the telegrams and that sort of thing, and he sings a song, and in that song he says, "Love in the heart wasn't put there to stay. Love isn't love till it's given away."
Right. Thank you. Excellent. What I appreciate about this interview today is the awareness. I think all of us innately know better, but you really brought it to where we can really monitor our lives, our reactions, etc., and just making us aware. And I thank you for that very, very much. I appreciate everything that you said. Your book is available on Amazon, I am assuming, and
It is
the game is available.
From my website
Okay.
only,
All
Carol.
right.
I do have the books on my website as well.
Okay.
It's rolloflove.com, ROLE. So there's a play on words there. ROLL is what you do outside of you.
Right,
A
right.
lot of things that you don't have control outside of you, but ROLE is the change that happens within as you send love out.
Perfect. And all of that will be on your webpage as well, all the information. And
It is.
so that's
Yes.
perfect. Thank you. And thank you again, Paul, for being on Never Ever Give Up Hope.
Carol, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Never Ever Give Up Hope, featuring Carol Graham. Did you know that most people succeed because they are determined to? Quitting was never an option. Carol loves your comments and will respond to each one. So please subscribe and review this podcast. A rating of 5 stars would be outstanding and appreciated. Remember, if you are still here, there is always hope.